Good morning, YouTube. Welcome back to another DFSArmy.com quick tip video type presentation. I am your buddy Choppadong. You can follow me on Twitter at Choppadong. I am a coach and contributor inside the DFS Army, where we love to talk DFS day in and day out, all sports, NBA, NFL, baseball, hockey, doesn't matter. We love to talk them all. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk to you a little bit about GPPs versus cash. We had a Army member that brought up a great point. He posted one of his lineups and he said, hey, I need some review here. I don't know if this is just the volatility of the game and I can chalk this up to variance, or if I did something wrong. I ran a lineup in cash and I need some help dissecting it in hindsight. And the first thing one of our coaches, DFS and Donuts, follow him on Twitter, said was, well, you ran a high-risk wide receiver and you ran a high-risk tight end. And that alone sunk your lineup in cash because those high-risk guys are boom or bust. And they don't go boom, you sink. Your ship sinks. And that's very, very true. And that was the problem with this guy's particular lineup, in that he chose in a cash play a couple of not so safe, not so consistent players. Now, we can talk about the details of that some other day. But what we also pointed out was in that lineup, there was also a correlation play. So if I had 9 players and 2 of them were high risk and then the other 7 were safe on standalone type plays, they were safe. We then took 3 of those players, the kicker, the defense, and the running back. Kareem Hunt, Harrison Butker, and the Kansas City Chiefs defense. And we strung them together in the same lineup. And what that serves to do is cluster our players together and create a specific scenario where they're all going to do well or they're all going to miss together. And that's bad for cash. In cash, we want to be more spread out. We want to make it harder for an individual play to sink the entire ship. Well, when these plays are correlated together, defense and kicker are correlated. Running back and defense are correlated. Running back and kicker are correlated. Why? Because if the running back's having a good game, then the kicker is not, we're not going for touchdowns later in the game. We're grinding the clock. We're getting close. We're booting the field goal, taking the 3 points and moving on. So the running back's chunking up yards, maybe getting a touchdown along the way, but he's getting a lot of yards and maybe some receptions, and then the kicker's kicking field goals. That happens a lot. Defense and kicker, as we know, when the defense turns the ball over, we got good field position. The kicker usually does well. We're getting points. Same thing with kicker and the running or defense and the running back. When the defense does well and get a lot of pick sixes or turnovers, then we start running the ball later because we've got the ball, we've got the lead, we're just controlling the clock, and we're just handing it to the running back and saying, don't screw it up, kid. So when those 3, but we're asking for a very specific scenario. We want all 3 of those to go off together. We're asking for our defense to score points for us with turnovers and touchdowns. We're asking our kicker to kick a lot of field goals because we've got some clock control, and we're hoping that the running back grinds the game down late or gets a lot of points along the way. That's asking an awful lot of those 3 players, and they may be fine. Kansas City, good defense usually. Kicker, good kicker usually. Running back, Kareem Hunt's having a great year. All 3 standalone cash safe plays, but together, now we're dependent upon game script and game flow. And while we were supposed to see a Kansas City victory last weekend, we were only 4-point favorites. We weren't 13-point favorites, and those, as we saw, don't always pan out either. But we were only a 4-point favorite, and Pittsburgh comes into Kansas City and usually does damage. So that game doesn't necessarily script out well for all 3 of those plays. One here, one there, fine, but all of them, no. So that becomes a more of a tournament or a GPP strategy than a cash strategy because we're too tightly clustered together. Let me show you what I mean. When we're aiming for a target in our cash game or in our tournaments, we're really aiming for that bullseye. How are we going to hit that bullseye best? Well, we cluster our players or our little army men together in the corner here, and we all shoot at the same time in the same direction. And if we're on target, boom, we hit the bullseye, we win the tournament. If we're off target, we're all off target together, and we miss. In a GPP, we don't care because those are so highly top-heavy in their payout structures that it doesn't matter. If we miss or if we hit, we're aiming for the hit. And we need all of these guys, we need all of our guys to hit, to be aimed at the same part or the same target or in the same direction, and they all need to hit the target all in the bullseye to win a GPP. And they're going to do that better off when they're tightly compacted and they shoot in the same direction. When we take our plays and spread them out, now we've got this guy shooting this way, this guy shooting this way, and they can't even line themselves up together and shoot together as a team because they're also spread out. It's like having a guy, 300 yards that way and another guy, 25 yards that way and another guy 50 yards that way. We can't all yell at each other when we're shooting at the same enemy and saying, hey, 2 clicks to your right, yo, 3 clicks to your left, and then all get lined. We just all have to shoot on our own and hope we all hit the target. And yes, in cash games, sometimes all 6 of them hit the bullseye. But most of the time, you're aiming for this black ring of the target. Anything that hits the target's good in a cash game. That's why we take guys that shoot well on their own individually in target practice. We spread them out and have them shoot at the target. Why? Because honestly, in defense, they're harder to pick off. When they're all spread out, this guy can have a bad shot and he doesn't sink our lineup if these 5 guys did well. Or if these 3 guys did well, these 2 guys are kind of not a factor. This enemy here can pick these 2 guys off and not sink the entire ship. In this example, this enemy just shoots one big shot and boom, he takes these guys out like bowling pins and the whole lineup falls apart. It's easier to hit. It's when all 6 of these guys miss their target, it's easier to miss the GPP. When all 6 of these guys miss their target, somebody's going to hit it. They're consistent players. They're cash safe plays, and they stand alone. This would be like Drew Brees with no receivers, and Kareem Hunt, and Leonard Fournette, and maybe a tight end like a Zach Ertz, and maybe a good solid defense like a heavily favored I don't even Denver Broncos at home, which wasn't a good example for this weekend, but you get my point. When they all stand alone and we don't have guys on the same team, then we're not clustered together. We're all spread out. And when we take all safe plays, generally speaking, 3, 4, 5 of them come through. If 2 of these guys do hit the bullseye, and then 1 or 2 of these guys misses and the other 2 just have average days, we're fine in our cash plays because we're only trying to hit this outer ring. We're not trying to hit the dead bullseye. We're just trying to hit the 50-50 line in a cash contest. If 3 or 4 of them do really well, then maybe we hit a triple up line. And that's where you start seeing me talk about my ladder and hybrid lineups and things that we talk about inside the DFS Army to our VIPs. I'll link the ladder article to this discussion in the video article that I'm going to post. But I want you to understand that what we're trying to do for GPPs is be tightly clustered together in our plays, all correlated, and all with a lot of upside. Very risky because if they miss the target, we miss the tournament completely. But we're not aiming for just the target. We're aiming for the bullseye. We're aiming for the win. In a cash game, we're spread out. Our plays are not related to each other because as individual consistent players, they tend to have their own good games. They don't get tied into each other. If one game falls apart like that Pittsburgh Kansas City game did yesterday or Sunday, then we're not dead. We still got 5 live soldiers out there in the field, and they should all have good games because they're in good spots and they're good, consistent players. If 2 or 3 of them falter, well, shit happens. Sometimes that just happens that way. But sometimes 2 or 3 of them have great games too, and the other 3 guys have a solid game, and then we do really well in our cash games. And out of a 100-player 50-50, we end up in 3rd place. Well, that's when we also want to take these plays and we want to throw them into some triple ups, quintuple ups, higher upside tournaments like that ladder talks about with a smaller portion of our bankroll, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to hit that 50-50, but we know that some days we're going to do better. Even though we're not necessarily aiming for that, we know we're going to do better. So we talk about these hybrid lineups. And what's a hybrid? It's not a GPP. It's not cash. It's in the middle. What is it doing? It's taking those players. It's not so spread out like cash, and it's not so tightly clustered. It's spread out, but yet it's still a little bit clustered. So up here, we may have, down here, a quarterback and a wide receiver together. Out here, we may have a defense from a completely different game. We may have a tight end from a completely different game. And over here, maybe we have a kicker and a running back off the same team. Different game than this one, but the same. So hopefully as a DFS player, you're understanding the analogy that I'm drawing here with this visual representation and understanding that in a cash game, we want to be really, really spread out, but we want good players. We don't want high risk players that tend to have bad days, but we want we want to be spread out. We don't want to correlate within the same game and be stacking quarterbacks and wide receivers and stuff like that. In a tournament, we want to stack everything and hope that it hits, because when it hits, it's going to hit the bullseye. In a hybrid lineup, we want to do a little bit of both. We want to be mostly spread out because, again, we're giving ourselves the best shot possible at hitting this outer black ring or the bullseye, whatever, at just hitting the target in general. It's going to be a little harder for us to hit the red bullseye because our players are spread out, but it's going to give us a higher likelihood of both these guys hitting the bullseye together, which is going to boost our score. Hybrid lineups are what you put in those triple ups and quintuple ups and things like that, because those are going to be cash safe in that they're spread out, but they're going to be slightly correlated, so they're going to give us some upside to hit that bullseye together. If you need more advice and you need more teaching and understanding of these concepts, you need to become a VIP inside the DFS Army, because that's where we talk about this stuff more often. And this is where we go into details with our members, and we teach how to beat these cash games, how to layer your lineups and your contests successfully so that you can then take it to the next level and build a bankroll and then last longer without redepositing, so that hopefully you can build a few GPP lineups and hit those bullseyes with those. But you have to understand the fundamental difference between being closely clustered together, widely spread out, and a little bit of both. Guys, follow the link in the description in this video, dfsarmy.com, and come and check me out. Come and check our other coaches out. We're getting NBA rolling. We've got hockey going. We've got football obviously cranking mid-season now. This is a great time. We have NASCAR, golf, all the stuff too. It's a great time to be a member inside DFS Army. And for one low price of $29 a month, it's cheaper than a lot of other stuff out there on the internet. We have our optimizer, we have the research station I'm showing you right here, and we have a bunch of tools and customized projections built for you to succeed. But we also do what nobody else does, and that's teach the fundamentals of building lineups. You just got a sample of it here. For more details, you need to come and be a VIP. Guys, take care. We will see you on the flip flop.